My name is Anne Marie, and I'm the owner operator for Third Space Vintage Antiques and More. And today we bring you Audie. Audie is a vendor in my shop. She's a amazing, wonderful person. She's a smart cookie. She knows her vintage, and she's going to be talking about colored glass today. So please welcome Audie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Um, I first want to say, I have loved colored glass tableware ever since I was a kid. And I guess during that time period, it wasn't the most highfalutin, elegant thing. It was sort of everyday wear. So we're talking about, 70s, not to date myself or anything, but but so my fascination is the art glass, or the topic today is going to be the art glass and the tableware from that time period, the 60s and the 70s. Um, and firstly, I have like four different companies that I'd like to focus on. Um, but just to give a little insight into like the influences of that time, it was sort of moving away from that delicate, precious, gilded tableware and decor from the 50s and the 40s, where everything was very elegant. The 60s and 70s became a little more bold. The forms were a little more structured and heavy. And also, there was sort of a resurgence of arts and crafts, not necessarily the aesthetic of the arts and crafts style from the 30s, but an idea of things that are handmade and they were well structured and meant to last a lifetime. So, getting a little bit away from the precious, a little more into the utilitarian and things that look great that are useful. So, I'm going to share my screen here. So the first company that I'm going to talk about is Indiana Glass. And they started in 1896 and closed their doors in 2007. And this company, I tend to have a lot of their items at Third Space Vintage. I think partly because I love it and I just sort of have an eye out for it. So I'm always finding it everywhere. And also because it's pretty prevalent in the market. Um, so about the Indiana Glass Company, they went through a slump during the Depression, but they had a resurgence in the 1970s. When they had their resurgence, they were sort of doing things for big box stores like the Kmart and the Grant and Two Guys of that time period. So it was meant to be sort of elevated everyday wear. Um, their products are mostly pressed, blown, and handmade, hand molded glassware. So even though it looks like it's carved, you can tell by the softness of the etching and the design that it's actually molded and not actually carved into the glass. Um, they usually don't have any maker's marks, but if you do find one, they usually don't have any maker's marks, but if you do find one, it's like you'll see there in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. They usually didn't put marks on them. I imagine because it was mass produced and also because they sort of wanted to be known by the form of their products rather than a name. Next company we're going to go to Glass Company, and this is uh, the only one of the four big ones that we're going to talk about today that are still in business today. So as you can see on the little owl, uh, it's a like a just a um, paperweight, little objet d'art. It has that sort of chunky handmade feeling. Um, so their line ranged from that to what's on the other side, which is very sleek, clean designs. Um, the large vase or urn on the right is actually from the 1960s, and the little owl is uh, this year, actually came out this year. So Blenco Glass, uh, their maker's mark is there on side, and sometimes you'll find them them signed, and sometimes you won't. They have a website with all of their catalogs from the past year. So if you had a question about whether something is or isn't a Blenco um, product, you can check the old catalogs to actually see and compare that way. Moving on to Fenton glass, which is, I think, one of the most popular ones to collect. They started out in 1905 and they closed their doors in 2011. Mostly popular or mostly well known for their carnival glass, which is glass in bright and amazing colors, objet d'art, tableware. Um, Sometimes they'll even have iridescent. Uh, I wish I could have had pictures of all the types of things that they had, but it was just overwhelming. But really intensely colored, solid colored glassware. Uh, in the bottom there, you can see some of the maker marks. They would actually have a paper label onto the bottom of it. Sometimes you can still find some with a paper label on it. Usually it's been washed away or just fell off. So um, if you have one, if there is that little paper mark on it, it's amazing and will actually help with the evaluation um, and the identification of the product. But usually you won't really find one. Our next one is called Viking, the Viking Glass Company. Um, they were mostly popular from 1940s to 1980s. They had a very wide range of colors. Their colors were a little more toward the primary color um, part of the spectrum rather than the earthier tones that we saw in Blenton and in Viking. So I'm sorry, Viking's coming next. So, uh, but they got into tableware and also objet d'art. They had a particular fancy for animals. So you'll see animals impressed on glass or just as little statuary. But that is one of the key things that you'll find about Viking. If you see a colored glass with an animal on it, there is a strong possibility from that time period, there's a strong possibility that it was Viking. And I think that is all of the companies that I wanted to share. But as I was mentioning before, a lot of the influences from the 70s uh, that arts and crafts, uh, that beautiful practical items was really very popular. So they wanted to make things that you can use on an everyday basis, but gorgeous. So it's sturdy, but beautiful at the same time. And that's one of the things I really like about this time period and colored glass from this time period. And I mentioned, also carry a lot of this stuff at my booth at Third Space Vintage. And Anne Marie, what did you think?
No, well, I learned quite a bit. I was familiar with the company names, but there was details in history that I was not. So I have a question, and I don't know if you may know this. The Indiana Glass, they correct me if I'm wrong, but they had a carnival glass as well, did they not?
Yes. And it's interesting because a lot of times they kind of mimicked each other. And if you saw like the full range of each of the products, they kind of mimicked each other and borrowed from each other. So um they did a bit of carnival glass. It wasn't their big thing. Um, but I think some of their objet d'art was
I remember from my youth. I know my mother had a set of what I thought to be almost I don't know if you'll know this reference, gas colored. So a
oh
fuel
yeah.
color, if you see it on the ground and it almost has that rainbow reflection. And,
Yes.
and I seem to remember that they had a series of items, I guess, cups and pitchers. I don't know, maybe it was for alcohol use for bars, uh,
Hmm.
and it had that color, and I was always fascinated
Yeah,
by
yeah.
it as a child.
Yeah, Fenton, I think made it really popular. I think they were one of the first ones to, I won't say that they invented it because I think that they were like stealing each other's stuff all the time.
Right, right,
Um,
right, right, right.
or
Chicken
other
egg
start
type of thing. Yeah,
borrowing each other's ideas. But yeah, yeah, that iridescent, which is it's hard to capture on camera, but when you see it, it's just like amazing the different colors that they can get. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone, and thank you, Anne Marie, for being our host this week.
It's my
Um,
honor.
thanks, and we'll be back next time with another topic on antiques and vintage items from Third Space Vintage and Vintage. Thanks so much.
Bye.